In the last stream, we were working on setting up this abomination of create cogwheels to allow this very, very slow create windmill to power our encased fan and give it enough strength to push mobs that are being spawned on this blessed earth all the way over to the diamond spikes at the end here. In doing so, ideally creating us a mob farm that produces both passive and hostile mobs. That's the whole idea behind the blessed earth. It's supposed to be a combination of blessed and cursed earth, spawning both passive and hostile mobs, whose drops are collected in the vacuumulator, then transferred over to the diamond chest. And the good news is that we have managed to get quite a lot of stuff in a very short period of time since the end of the last stream. The bad news is that, as you can see here, the two items that we wanted, those being sugar and feathers, are nowhere to be seen. There are no feathers, and there is not a single piece of sugar in this chest, which is a little unfortunate, but hopefully, if we leave it going, we will maybe, possibly, eventually get some sugar. In the meantime, what we can do up on the surface, as I alluded to at the end of the last stream, is we can go ahead and get ourselves one singular block of iron, and if we surround that with dirt, I think that the recipe for blessed earth is just that simple. It is. And so I think what we're going to do then is just take this, place it down somewhere up on the surface here, and that should start spawning a large amount of just passive mobs. Ideally, what we're looking for here, chat, is chickens. We want to get 4 feathers, because as soon as we get 4 feathers, we can craft the Swift Wolf's Rending Gale, and that is going to give us creative mode flight, which is very nice indeed, especially this early in the pack. So real quick, let's grab, I guess, enough to make a diamond sword here. We could, if we wanted to, make a red matter sword. That would be a lot more expensive on the EMC front, and probably not necessary. I don't think that passive mobs are that powerful. Unlike the cursed earth, this does not need to be left in a dark room, and if we just wait and see, we should hopefully get a fairly large number of passive mobs. We're in a river biome, which should be fine. So the Twitch chat is hypothesizing that we might not get any passive mobs in a river biome, which is potentially true. By the way, I did do a little bit of base reworking here between streams. I added this ring of grass around the outside of the base, and then replaced the 2 grass platforms in the middle with oak planks. I'm not entirely certain how I feel about it. I might end up kind of redoing this again at some point in the near future, but the idea is that hopefully before the end of today's stream, we will have a setup in place to automatically craft these regular mechanical crystals, and I'm thinking of putting that setup right here in this kind of second quadrant, right next to the first quadrant, producing the basic mechanical cubes. So we do have a savanna biome right here. I'm not entirely certain if that's going to be of much use either, but we can give it a go. You do get the blessed earth back when you break it, and of course we can give this a quick time in a bottle tap to try and make it just a little bit faster. All right, there we go. We have 4 feathers, and we have more chickens here as well if we wanted to get even more feathers. We did get quite lucky. We got 2 feathers from our first chicken, although we are now up to 6. Never mind, 8 feathers. We can come back over here, and we should have everything that we need to make this Swift Wolf's Rending Gale. We need 4 dark matter, which we can get out of our transmutation table, and we need an iron band, which is 8 iron and 1 bucket of lava. We still have a bucket of lava left from the beginning of the pack, and we have a lot more than 8 iron lying around, and so if we do this and then surround that with 4 feathers and 4 dark matter, we get the Swift Wolf's Rending Gale ring. And as I mentioned in the last stream, the idea here is that this ring uses different kinds of fuel to give us creative flight. So I actually don't know if the fuel needs to have an EMC value. There's a fairly easy way for us to test this. If we take some coal, well, actually, let me test it without the coal. If I try and fly, nothing happens. If I have coal on me, nothing happens. So it might need to have an EMC value. That is completely fine. That means that really any of these fuels here, the alchemy coal, the Mobius fuel, or the Aeternalis fuel will work. The higher the EMC value, the longer you get creative flight. And so you'll see that it ate that Aeternalis fuel, and so now we can fly. Look at this. So it's probably almost certainly going to be in our best interest to keep a fair amount of Aeternalis fuel, ideally, I guess, a full stack of Aeternalis fuel in our inventory at any given time, just in case the Swiftwolf's Renegale runs out. You can see at the bottom there that the stored EMC amount is going down quite fast. It is a fairly expensive process, but given how fast we're generating EMC and given the fact that we won't be flying all of the time, and it does only use that EMC while you're flying, having a stack of Aeternalis fuel in our inventory that we can just top up whenever we want using the transmutation tablet is essentially going to give us a limitless amount of creative mode. Flight. You can also place this into a bauble slot over here. So this little button next to our engineer's goggles opens up our, they used to be called bauble slots. I think in newer versions of Minecraft, these are called curio slots. But you'll see here, this says slot ring, and over here we have a ring slot, and so we can just place that in there, close this out, and then we still get the effect without the ring having to take up an inventory slot, which is very nice indeed. And so now, chat, we can pivot over to potentially looking at automating this regular mechanical crystal, because initially what I was going to do is I was going to use thermal expansion to make steel and then set up a bunch of multi-servo presses to get all of the different gears and rods required to make the regular mechanical essence. However, it has been brought to my attention that it's probably not the best idea to go with the thermal expansion setup, simply because now that we have unlocked the tier 3 basic mechanism questline, we can get a metallurgic infuser very quickly, and the metallurgic infuser is extremely cheap to make. It's 2 furnaces, 4 iron, 2 redstone, and 1 osmium, substantially cheaper than making any of the machines from thermal expansion. On top of that, these machines are much more flexible in how you can upgrade them, and so I think using these to make steel is going to be the far superior option. We do have osmium available to us in our transmutation tablet. It is fairly expensive. It's 2,048 per osmium, but I think, yeah, we can very easily afford a stack of that stuff now. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that in over here. And in fact, speaking of mechanism, I think one of the first things that we should also probably look at getting is an energized smelter. This guy right here. This essentially works in the same way as the redstone furnace in that it can smelt items using power. But again, the mechanism machines are so much more flexible and upgradable to the point where we can make the energized smelter much, much faster than we could ever make a redstone furnace. So let's quickly get some osmium here. We'll distribute this amongst a couple of furnaces. It also means that if we get the energized smelter, we can hopefully tear down this wall of furnaces before the end of today's stream. We do only need 2 osmium, and so the 9 that we have here is going to be more than enough. We are probably going to need more if we want to make the metallurgic infuser and energized smelter faster, but once we have that, we can grab some cobblestone from our transmutation tablet. And actually, chat, one thing that I didn't show off in the last stream that I think is pretty nifty is that if you take a basic EMC link and you place that down connected to the Pretty Pipes network, say like this, you can then look in here. We've got 144 cobblestone. If we set this EMC link to cobblestone, like this, and we open this back up, we now have access to 3.73 million cobblestone because it can just pull the cobblestone directly out of that basic EMC link, which I think is super cool. It's not massively useful for a lot of the resources that we have because a lot of them are just in raw form, so being able to pull raw gold is not massively useful, but being able to pull things like glowstone or red matter or maybe uraninite from a basic EMC link without having to go through the transmutation tablet is going to be quite useful, especially if we end up auto-crafting with the Pretty Pipes crafting terminal here. Either way, let's go ahead and request, I'm going to request 4 furnaces here because I want to make 2 metallurgic infusers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Once we have 4 of those, I'll send those back just because it's easier for the requesting. Then we'll go ahead and request 1, I would say 2 of these, but the osmium is also not requestable. We'll throw that back in as well. That's fine. And we'll throw the iron back in as well. Why not? 1 and 2. Those are going to populate the crafting terminal here, and then we can get these down and connect it up to power. So right now we have a couple of general purpose machines over here. I'm probably going to move the general purpose machines over to this area once we get rid of the furnaces. And so if we pick both of these up, the metallurgic infusers here are super useful because what we can do We can place coal in the yellow slot, and that's going to turn into carbon in this bar on the left here. And then we can place iron in the red slot. That is going to slowly but surely process this iron into enriched iron, which is this stuff right here. The enriched iron can then be run through the exact same process. So if we run that again through a metallurgic infuser with carbon, that's going to produce steel dust. And then the steel dust we can just smelt, you guessed it, into steel. And so that's going to be substantially easier and also a fair bit faster than using the thermal expansion machines. The induction smelter and the pyrolyzer are both fairly slow, especially when used to make steel. And as I mentioned a few times now, we can make these machines substantially faster. In fact, let's look at doing that with the energized smelter. So the energized smelter is made with 4 redstone, 2 glass, 2 basic control circuits, and a steel casing. The steel casing, not too bad. It's 4 steel and 4 glass. We should still have some steel. We do. And we've got a fair bit of glass left over from the last stream. So making one of these, not going to be a problem for us. And then the basic control circuits are made in the metallurgic infuser, this time with redstone and osmium, both of which we have in fairly substantial quantities. And so if we do this and this, we can slowly but surely begin making those basic control circuits. Once we have 2 of those, that should be everything that we need to get ourselves an energized smelter. Nice. So if we put this down here, this is a fairly decent way of smelting things already compared to using our furnace, because of course we don't have to put fuel in, it's just going to smelt things. It does make a horrible sound, but the best part about this is that we can make it so much faster. The first thing that we can do is we can look at using the speed and energy upgrades from Mechanism. The speed upgrades increase the speed of basically any Mechanism machine, but they come with a pretty hefty power penalty, meaning the machine will use more power to go at that faster speed. That's where the energy upgrades come in. The energy upgrades can be used to offset that extra increase in power consumption. So both of these are made in fairly similar ways. The speed upgrade is made with 2 glass, 1 osmium dust, and 2 infused alloys. The energy upgrade is made in the exact same way, but with gold dust instead of osmium dust. And so if we were to grab, let's say, 8 raw osmium and 8 raw gold, we should be able to craft both of those down with our engineer's hammer. And then from there, the only thing we don't have is infused alloy. So we're going to need 32 of these if we want to make 8 speed and 8 energy upgrades. These are made, again, in the metallurgic infuser, this time with redstone and iron. Now, I think the only thing that's going to get in our way here is the amount of iron that we have, but what we can do now is we can grab some raw iron from our transmutation tablet, and unlike the thermal expansion machines, the Mechanism machines are not limited on how much power can go into them, and so we can use the time in a bottle really as fast as we like, so long as we have the power generation to back it up. And so you'll see already making this 128 times faster, because we have the power to do it, it's still just working perfectly fine. In fact, if we can manage it, I'm going to try and get... Oh no, we don't quite have enough power. We have run out of backlog power there, so maybe we went a bit too aggressive, but we did get a stack of iron very, very quickly. And so now over here, we can do the same thing. We can drop in the iron. We can give it a quick tap with the time in a bottle. We'll maybe go to just 64. And once we get to 32, that should be basically everything outside of maybe some glass that we need to make these upgrades. Let me take a look here. We can make a couple of these, 6 in total. And so over here, we can put in the sand, and now we can place in the upgrades. We can place those in like this. Alternatively, you can shift right click them in the front. That's a faster way of installing them. But you'll see here, this machine is now using 632 FE per tick, which is quite expensive. It's a lot more than the default amount. In fact, if I take the speed upgrades out here, you'll see that by default, it only uses 20 redstone flux per tick. And so while this does make it a fair bit faster, in fact, this makes it 5.62 times faster, it is using way more than 5.62 times the amount of power that it was before. Thankfully, that is where the energy upgrades come in. If we go ahead and make some of those, we can again install those, and now the machine is only using 112, but it is going 5.62 times faster than it was previously. Let's get 2 more speed and 2 more energy just to fully max out this energized smelter here. Boom and boom. And so now the smelter is 10 times faster than its base speed, whilst using, I think, about 10 times as much power, so maybe 200 redstone flux per tick. But we can take it yet further, because all of the basic Mechanism machines can be turned into factories. Factories are higher tier versions of the same machine that can process more resources at once. For example, if we type in smelting here, you can see that there is a basic, an advanced, an elite, and an ultimate smelting factory. And as you move up the chain here, the basic factory can smelt 3 items at a time, the advanced can do 5, the elite can do 7, and the ultimate smelting factory can smelt 9 items at a time. To upgrade these, you can just craft the energized smelter with the required items. Alternatively, you can also use the installer cards, these ones right here that go from basic all the way to ultimate, to upgrade the factory in the world. And the cards here are not too difficult to make. In fact, if we wanted to make a basic tier factory, we would need 4 redstone, 2 iron, and 2 basic control circuits, which we have made before. And in fact, we have all of that stuff ready to go. Boom. If we right-click that, or I believe shift right-click that, onto the energized smelter, it is going to transform into a basic smelting factory. So now this factory still smelts at the same speed it did before, but basically 3 times faster because it can smelt 3 items at once. And so once again, if we were to grab some of the raw iron out of our transmutation tablet, we can place this in. There is a button on the left here for auto sort. If we turn that on, it will automatically divide the item that we put to be smelted amongst all 3 of the inputs. And you can see here that this is substantially faster than trying to do anything with this wall of furnaces over here. And in fact, I think we have what it takes to push over to the advanced tier installer as well. This is just 2 advanced control circuits, 4 of those previously used infused alloys, and then 2 osmium and a plank. The advanced control circuits are made by crafting the basic control circuit with 2 infused alloy. And so if we can get 8 infused alloy, which we definitely can over in here, let's drop in 8 redstone, along with 8 iron. We also need 1 more basic control circuit, which is going to be fine. That is 1 more osmium ingot. There we go. And with that, we should have what it takes to craft up 2 advanced control circuits and an advanced installer. We just need a tiny bit more osmium. We did start smelting some more over here. Fantastic. Let's do this. We're, of course, just missing 1 singular plank of wood. We'll take you right there. And boom, there is our advanced installer. Let's shift right-click that onto the basic smelting factory. You do have to go through all of the tiers. You can't just go straight to the ultimate tier installer. You have to start with basic and work your way up through all of the tiers. But in here now, we can do 5 items at a time. And so, yeah, my idea really is just to use this as our general smelting setup and kind of get rid of this entire wall of furnaces, because I don't really think that we're going to need them. I think we should be able to get away with just using this advanced smelting factory here as the one place that we do all of our smelting. And of course, just like before, we can take this and make it even faster using our time in a bottle. Let's make it, 8 times faster, and you'll see this thing is crazy fast. And we are finally actually starting to run into a power problem, which is something that we do need to keep our eye on. I think for now it's going to be fine, because this only really runs out of power when we make it 8 times faster than it normally is, but it does mean that we are going to have to look at upgrading our power setup at some point in the fairly near future. Annoyingly, I have kind of messed up here a little bit. There is a quest line that does a lot of the stuff that I've just done, but I didn't tick this box. There's a quest here called Getting Mechanized. It says, Mechanism is a powerful tech mod that adds tiered machines to help you with mass production of many of the ingredients you will need to continue your journey. And then, it has given us the reward for getting the metallurgic infuser there, which is good. It does want us to make 1 more of these basic control circuits. I assume that's because I don't have one. I am very hopeful that this quest is going to be complete for us, because we did make the energized smelter, although I assume the reason this quest completed is because I have a metallurgic infuser on me. That's fine. We can maybe make another energized smelter at some point in the future if we want to get that quest completed. The one quest that I really do want to complete, though, is that one right there, because this quest gives us 8 speed, 8 energy, and 8 gas upgrades, which means straight away we can upgrade our metallurgic infuser as well here with 8 speed and 8 energy upgrades, making it much, much faster than it was just a few seconds ago. And it does appear there's 1 more quest there as well. There is for the installer. Again, we will definitely end up making a basic tier installer at some point in the near future to make our mechanism machines faster, but for the time being, we can leave that section of the quest book alone and focus in on automating the regular mechanical crystals. Okay, so if we're going to make this happen, we need invar gears, steel gears, I'll bookmark both of these, and bronze rods. We already have the basic mechanical essence, we're making that over here. Once we have this setup ready to go, we will then just get rid of this multi-servo press and take all of the basic mechanical essence from here and pump it around into the creation of this blue mechanical essence. So none of this should be too difficult. We are going to have to make steel, invar, and bronze first, and then of course get 3 more multi-servo presses to produce invar, steel, and bronze. Now, for all of that, we're going to have to start by getting iron and nickel for invar. We're going to have to get copper and tin for bronze, and then steel we're going to make, of course, with the 2 metallurgic infusers that we have already. So, unfortunately, as we saw before, you can't make alloys out of raw materials. So if we wanted to make invar ingots in an induction smelter, we do have to have either the dust variants or the actual ingots themselves. And so I think what we're going to want to do here is probably just make more energized smelters. We don't need smelting factories for the automation because, again, the EMC links are pretty slow and the multi-servo presses are also fairly slow. But I do think the energized smelters are going to be a better choice than the redstone furnaces going forward, simply due to the fact that they're easier to make. This is just such a simpler recipe versus the one for the redstone furnace, which requires machine frames and flux coils and bricks that we have to smelt from clay, and it's a whole thing, and gears are out the wazoo. Whereas over here, especially now that we can make these much faster, we should just be able to take some coal, take some iron, which of course we can make more of very quickly now thanks to our ultra-fast advanced smelting factory. And you know what? I will go ahead and get a few more stacks of raw iron here, just because we're definitely going to need it. Let me do 1, 2, 3, and then over here we can do 1 and 2, and that's going to very quickly make us a bunch of enriched iron, which of course we can make a tiny bit faster. And once we have that, we can run it through again to get a bunch of steel, at which point we should be able to make a couple of energized smelters. In this case, we're going to need 1 for iron, 1 for nickel, 1 for copper, 1 for tin, and 1 for steel. So I think we need 5 energized smelters. The downside to the advanced smelting factory here is that the power increase goes up linearly. So if you have 1 slot, it uses 200 redstone flux per tick or 200 Fe per tick. They're the same thing. Whereas if you have 5 slots, it uses 200 redstone flux per slot. And so this machine alone, when full, uses 1,000 redstone flux per tick, which is substantially more than we currently have the capacity to use for a long period of time. Thankfully, this can hold 200,000 redstone flux, and so we can do quite a bit of smelting just on the buffer alone. But if we want to do a long period of smelting, that's where things get a little tricky. We could, of course, look at getting a ton more integral components. These are super easy for us to make, and if we get these and put them into all the dynamos, that's going to effectively double the amount of power that we are producing currently. So that's definitely something that we could look at doing fairly shortly. For now, though, let's see if we can't make 5 of these steel casings, which are going to require a bunch more sand. And sand is one of those things that we don't have that much of. We've got gravel, but we don't have a lot of sand. So we could use the pulverizer, as we've been doing up until this point, to get more gravel and then turn the gravel into sand. But again, I think it's worth investing in the crusher from Mechanism here. It's not too expensive. It does require 2 buckets of lava, but would you look at that, we have 2 buckets of lava ready to go. It also needs 2 basic control circuits, the steel casing we just made, and 4 redstone. That is fine. We'll take that steel casing. Redstone we have. The only thing we're missing is 2 basic control circuits. That is not going to be a problem for us. We can do that over in the metallurgic infuser. And of course, the nice thing about all of these Mechanism machines is that we can very easily move all of the upgrades around. So whilst we're using the crusher, we can just take all of the speed and energy upgrades out of this metallurgic infuser, place them into the crusher, and then move them back when we no longer need them in there. If you end up with too much carbon or too much redstone in this slot and you need to do something else, that is what this big dump button here is for. Click dump and it will empty it out and make room for us to make more basic control circuits, at which point we can now go ahead and do something like this, and we'll go ahead and place this down right next to our energized smelter. Again, all of these are going to be moved actually fairly shortly because I want to move the advanced smelting factory and the crusher over to here. Those are going to be just general purpose machines that we use whenever we need them. They're not going to be part of the steel making process, but for now, we can put the gravel in here, we can steal the speed and energy upgrades, and shift those into here. Let's drop some cobble in there as well to get more gravel, and we'll start smelting that up again. That is going to tank our power, but that should be fine. One thing that I keep forgetting to mention in this pack is the top line of quests, and the top 3 lines of quests, actually. We kind of glossed right over those. So the first one is Overview. This just walks us through the mod pack. I should have read this at the beginning, but it walks us through the different stages that we have available to us. In fact, we're through a lot of the stages here, but we've got Thermal, Create an Immersive, and then Mechanism. Next up is a very interesting quest line. this one gives you the ability to change how certain things on the server work. So right here it says, don't like the darkness of the night, just click this one simple button and you can forever banish the terrors of darkness. So we click this and then it's going to be daytime all the time. We can click here. It says, actually, I meant to die right there. If you don't like running after your grave every time you die, you can choose to keep your inventory. So we can turn keep inventory on. There is also this one that says, by pressing this button, you won't have to remember to keep sleeping in order to stop phantoms from spawning. I haven't ticked this, but I have done it now. Because I hate phantoms, and but I don't think I've noticed them. So somebody else might have done that on the server. I don't know if anybody on the server can do this. I'm not too sure. And then this one, why are you here, rain? If you don't like having rain, I'm going to turn that one on as well. I don't like having rain either. And hopefully that'll just stop the rain going forward. And then a very interesting quest line is this one right here, the overhauled ore processing. I completely forgot that this mod pack has custom ore processing that allows us to get substantially more out of each of our raw ores. It says, this mod pack offers incredibly powerful methods of increasing ore yields per ore chunk, starting at doubling the output and going up to over 25 ingots per ore. Although not strictly necessary, this will be particularly useful to use since it will allow you to get more materials with less EMC cost. Do note that the machines shown on the quest aren't necessarily all of the machines that will be required for the whole process. And so there's a lineup here that we can use with the thermal expansion pulverizer, using this guy, I assume, the catalyst, to multiply the output that we get by 2.5 times. You can then crush what you get from that and then run it through more machines like the create crushing wheels and the purification chambers, the chemical injection chambers, the dissolution chambers, running through the whole mechanism gambit of ore processing. And so at some point in the future, we might have a look at automating this to see if we can't get a system in place that allows us to multiply our raw ores into 25 times their standard output. That would be very nice indeed. For now, though, let's not get too distracted. Let's see if we can't make 5 energized smelters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2... these don't stack. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nice. Okay, cool. So, let's go ahead then, chat. And first of all, clear our inventory out just a little bit. We don't need the raw nickel and raw iron clogging things up here. We also don't need feathers and chicken, and the induction smelters and pulverizers of the world can wait for the time being. Let's keep that Eternalist fuel on us, just in case we do want to do a little bit of flying. And as I've mentioned, we're going to take the smelting factory and the crusher, and we're going to move those over to here. So we'll get a bit of a line of machines going on this side, and we'll do the same with the pulverizer. We'll place this down over here, just in case the pulverizer is needed at some point in the near future. And then over here, we're going to need both of our metallurgic infusers. They're definitely going to need to be moved, but we can put them down there for now. We're also going to need a few more induction smelters, at least one more. I think one more is actually all we need, right? Because we need one to make Invar and one to make bronze. We, I think, should have basically everything it takes to make that. We do need 2 sand if we're going to make our next induction smelter here. So we are going to have to hook the crusher here back up with power. Again, thankfully, we do now have creative flight, and so doing this is going to be a fair bit easier. Let's instead do something like this, and then we'll run that over through to the center, like that, get rid of this, and then we'll just run the basic universal cable over and along, like so. This is fine, by the way. You can put blocks between your elevators, and they will still work just fine. Let's do a quick test, a quick checkup. There is a lot of stuff in here. However, no sugar. Not a single piece of sugar. We will go ahead and get rid of a couple of these bows here just to try and free up a bit of space. And I do also very soon want to look at getting a system in place that's going to allow us to automatically start filtering out what we don't want here and storing what we do want into storage drawers. But before we get too distracted, let's come back over here. Let's make sure that you and you both have some basic universal cables so that we can get ourselves some sand. There we go. Once we have the 2 sand, that is our second induction smelter done. And so now, I think the only thing that we're missing is 3 more multi-servo presses. 1, 2, 3. There are our multi-servo presses. And so I think that might be pretty much everything, chat. Although, actually, no, I lie, because we do need some EMC links, of course. We need 1 for iron, we need 1 for nickel, we need 1 for copper, 1 for tin, and we need 1 for coal for the steel. And then at that point, it also depends on whether or not we're going to use the same one, the same iron EMC link for making both Invar and steel, which we might be able to do. So we're going to need at least 5 EMC links here. We could look at making a tier 2 EMC link specifically for iron, because the tier 2 EMC link allows you to pull double the amount of raw ores out per second. All right, so there are 5 basic EMC links. If we want to upgrade one of these, it's actually not too expensive. We do need 2 of these basic mechanical essences, but boom, there is our tier 2 dark EMC link that can produce 2 iron per second, which is going to be needed because we need iron for both the Invar and for the steel. Now, the steel does require more iron than the Invar, but we'll see how things go. We can always upgrade this to a red EMC link once we get some more regular mechanical essence if we need to. Quick detour. Somebody in the Twitch chat is telling me something that, if true, is going to be very good for us. They're saying that we can use the Philosopher's Stone to turn cactus into sugarcane, which I think sounds right. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. Normally, you can transmute certain things with the Philosopher's Stone. Like here, you can see that the grass is transmutable. If I right-click on the sand here, it turns it into grass, which is nifty, I guess. But unfortunately, the cactus cannot be transformed with the Philosopher's Stone. Would have been nice, worth a try, but doesn't work. Anyway, let us see if we can't finally automate the good stuff here. We got so much junk in our inventory, chat, but it's fine. So let's break both of these, and also we'll dump that, and we'll take the speed and energy upgrades out of here. I don't think those are going to be needed. If anything, we might put a couple, and maybe 1 or 2 into each metallurgic infuser, but again, as per usual, the limiting factor is really how fast the multi-servo presses can go. So those are going to be what slow us down. Let's get rid of you. Let's get rid of you. So the way this is going to have to work, we need to put coal into both of these metallurgic infusers. So let's do something like this and something like this. I don't think that the metallurgic infusers can auto input like the thermal expansion machines can. So much like the thermal expansion machines, there is a side configuration tab. So you can configure which side things like the coal that go in the left slot here and which sides things like the iron are going to go into. But I don't believe that you can auto input. You can only auto eject, which we are going to use to push from one metallurgic infuser into another, and then of course round into an energized smelter like that. Did I leave the other energized smelters over in here? I totally did. Let's grab those as well. Let's quickly chomp down on our infinite steak. And then here, we're going to use 1 basic EMC link to provide coal to both of these 2. And so for that, we're going to set up a basic system here, chat, and then we can potentially look at making it less janky once we've got it down. But I'm thinking if we do something like this and get 2 of these basic logistical transporters down, we can then put the basic EMC link for coal above that, although we do need to bear in mind that the coal is going to come out in ore form, and we do need to process that coal before we can do anything with it. And so it might be worth getting an enrichment chamber potentially to allow us to process that coal ore into 2 coal. We could use an energized smelter, but it's just less coal and therefore less efficient. We could also steal our pulverizer, but the pulverizer gives us extra outputs that we don't really want. And so if we're going to get an enrichment chamber, it is more of the same that we've seen previously. Thankfully, none of that should be too difficult, just so long as we have enough steel for this, which we totally do. We did also just make a ton more glass, and we have more osmium, and so we're getting another steel casing, nice and easy. And then from there, it's just 1 measly redstone that we're missing, and we've got 37 lying around. Fantastic. Let's get that down over here somewhere. So we do need to get power to this, which is something that we're going to have to bear in mind. I'm thinking of putting the iron EMC link here, and that's going to pump iron over into this metallurgic infuser, like that. It's also going to pump iron into an energized smelter to be used for... Oh no, of course, this is not right either. We need the iron in ingot form first. So we need to take the iron, smelt it, then run it through the metallurgic infuser. Okay, so let's get an energized smelter down here. That's going to make iron, which is perfect. But then we need the iron to go to 2 separate locations. That should be fine. We can always make this 1 smelter faster so that the metallurgic infuser backs up and the induction smelter making Invar backs up. And so if we put the induction smelter for Invar, I guess, right about here, that should be just fine. At that point, all that this guy needs is nickel. And so for nickel, we're going to need another energized smelter. Like this. Let's make sure this doesn't connect, so we're going to get rid of this, like that. You can shift right-click on the bit that connects to the machine, and that will get rid of the connection. This is where things could get a little janky, but if we do this, and of course disconnect this, we can then put the EMC link for nickel here. So that's going to produce nickel, get smelted, sent to the induction smelter. Over here, we're going to produce iron. That's going to get smelted. And we're going to send it to both the induction smelter and the metallurgic infuser. It's quite possible that one of these two get all of the iron first, but we can always make this energized smelter faster using speed and energy upgrades to the point where it's faster than both the induction smelter and the metallurgic infuser, at which point both of these should eventually just back up and be fine. So once that's done, over here, we need our next metallurgic infuser, like that. Of course, here is where we need the coal. So let's do this. And then this is where it gets a little tricky because I kind of don't want to run energy cables like up and around like this. I think it's going to look real janky. Also, if you change the configurator to wrench mode, you can just pop those cables off without having to break them, which is nice and quick. So what we might end up doing here then, in that case, is maybe just putting the enrichment chamber here and then getting rid of both of these two, which again we can do with the wrench now, like that, and put those here and here. That way we can extract from this and then insert into both of these, and we can obviously put an EMC link, let's say, we could put it here, but you know what, let's put it here. That's going to produce coal ore, turn it into coal, and then distribute it amongst these two. Again, one of these is going to get coal first. We can make this faster to fill both of these up nice and quickly. That should be steel basically done. We're going to get steel dust, and then of course right on the end, we're going to turn that into steel ingots, and then we need the multi-servo press, which we could put on the end here. I'll put it there temporarily, although I might end up moving that potentially here if needs be. Here, Invar is done. So Invar can then go just over and get turned into an Invar gear. That's fine. And in fact, that kind of makes me want to do this, because then we can use like one pipe here to extract from both of these multi-servo presses and insert into the basin. We might end up using pretty pipes for the final stage of the process, just to make sure that there's only like one steel gear or one Invar gear or two bronze rods, I think it is, yeah, in the mixer at any one time. So this is fine. And so in fact, let's take you. We do have to think about where this mechanical mixer is going to go. We could potentially put that here, like that. We are, of course, going to have to get create power to that, but that's a problem for Isaac of like 15 minutes from now. And then we can take a pretty pipe, assuming that we have one. It's, of course, easier to search in here. We do not have one, which is unfortunate. Do we have what it takes to make that? We do. Good stuff. So we'll have the pipe here, like that. Of course, we're going to set you to output like that, and we're going to set you to output like this, and then we can put a stack limiter on that as well. Again, I don't know if we have one left. We do have an extractor, which is perfect. Stack. We don't have a stack limiter. And there's our stack limiter. Nice. So we should be able to... This might not work, because if I put the extractor in, the metallurgic infuser, we can set the back to do nothing, to none. That's just not going to connect. But then in here, I don't think that we can set this. We can either set it to extract from all sides or a specific side, but I don't think we can set it to extract from 2 out of the 3 sides, which is unfortunate, but fine. It just means we're going to have to move the basin over by 1 like that. At that point, we can just set all of this to extract on all sides, like that. And then that should, if we put a stack limiter in here and set it to 1, that should keep 1 steel gear and 1 Invar gear in here at all times, which is fantastic. So next up, we need to do kind of the same thing, but with bronze rods. Now let's work backwards here. We're going to put the multi-servo press here. That one is going to have another extraction upgrade. This time, of course, because it's only one machine, we don't need the 2 wide gap like this. We can just put the extractor and the stack limiter in that one pipe. That's going to be fine. You require bronze, which we're going to get from the induction smelter, and bronze requires both copper and tin. So let's go and put 1 energized smelter here and 1 energized smelter here. Of course, we can make the right side there do nothing, so that doesn't connect. That's fantastic. And then we'll just have 1 EMC link here, another EMC link here. We'll have you here and here. Make sure that this doesn't connect and that this also doesn't connect. And so, ideally, copper is going to go from here, get smelted into copper ingots, and placed in the induction smelter. Tin is going to go into here, get smelted into tin ingots, and get placed into here. Those are going to be turned into bronze. That bronze is going to get sent over. We do, of course, need a rod dye in order to make the bronze rods, but then those bronze rods will be extracted into here. Again, we'll have a stack upgrade, limiting that to 2. Over here, we have iron being produced. It's going to get smelted. It's going to get sent here to be turned into enriched iron, and then here into steel dust, and then here, that's going to make steel ingots, which are going to be turned into steel gears and sent around over into the basin, one at a time. Over here, this guy is also going to get iron, and over here we have nickel being made, smelted, and turned into Invar with the iron from the previous setup. That is then made into Invar gears, and again, those are sent around into here. And so I think, chat, that this is pretty much good to go. We need to quickly power all this up. So we need to run some basic universal cable to everything, and we need to right-click on all of our EMC links to make sure that they are set to the right resource, and we need to get another extraction and stack limiter module. But after that, the only thing left to do is get create power. All right, so 1 low extraction and 1 stack limiter module later. Let's put both those in. Let's set the stack limiter here to 2 because we want 2 bronze rods, and then let's set the extraction module to the multi-server press. That is perfect. Now, let's get all of the stuff that we need. So we need raw copper, we need raw tin, we need raw iron, we need raw nickel, and we need coal ore. Copper can go here, tin can go here, iron has to go here, nickel is going to go here, and then raw coal is going to go there. All of those can go back into the transmutation tablet, and then here we can set this to extract, this to extract, this to extract, you to extract, and you'll never guess it, chat, this is also going to be set to extract. Now, this setup, unlike the previous one, doesn't have any kind of safeguards in place in terms of using too much EMC. That's mostly because I think we're not going to use too much EMC. We've got 4.3 million, and this setup here really is not going to use too much, I don't think. But if we ever get low, we could always look at changing this up. Now, let's see about running some cable to all these machines to get this going. All right, so all of this is hooked up, which is fantastic. Temporarily, I'm going to turn all of the multi-server presses off, and by that I mean I'm going to set their redstone control to high, basically meaning they need a redstone signal to work, because of course we do need to get 2 more gear working dies and 1 more rod die. So 1, 2, and 3. Nice. We are also going to have to configure all of the sides of the machines over here, because right now these are all not configured correctly, but you need a rod die, you need a gear working die, and you need a gear working die. So how are we doing? Iron is being made. This needs to go to 2 different locations. It needs to go to the bank, so we're going to set that to output, and we can set the rest of these to nothing, so you can shift left click, by the way, to just set them to none straight away. We're going to turn auto eject on, and that's all good. So that should push the iron here and here. Of course, with the induction smelter, we need to set the back to input and the left to output, and we're going to turn auto eject on. We don't need auto input to be on. That's fine. This guy also needs to input from the right-hand side here. That's where this is going to come in. You are not receiving any nickel, and I think that's probably, make sure that doesn't reconnect, it doesn't, probably because of the fact that the right side here is not set to input. So we'll change that to blue, we'll change the left side to output, turn auto eject on, and then set all of the other sides to do nothing. Fantastic. That's going to eject the nickel to here. You're going to eject out to here. Here we need to set you to input and then the left to output. That is fine, and that's all good. This is all set up. Fantastic. Following the chain along, here we have, we need to get our coal working actually. Let's set you to extract like that, and let's also make sure that this is set to input from the top and output to the right, auto eject on, and then here we want you to input from the front and the left, but we want you to, actually, so red is the input from the left, and then we want the yellow input on the front, like that. That's going to allow the coal to go in here. Fantastic. The same is true on this machine as well. We want the yellow input on the front like that, and then we want the blue on the right, auto eject on. Here, very similar setup. Red on the left, nothing on the top and bottom. Blue on the right, auto eject on. And then finally here, we want red on the left, and then blue on the back with auto eject on. Perfect. You here need to input from the back and output to the right, auto eject. Doesn't need to be on there, I don't think, but that's fine. And in fact, I'll turn that off because I don't think that's necessary. The pipe's going to extract for us. So I think this side is good to go. Again, we probably are going to have to put in a couple of speed upgrades and therefore also energy upgrades into this energized smelter to make it fast enough to provide iron here and iron here. For the time being, just to make sure everything's working, I'm going to slap some iron in there manually, but we'll keep an eye on this and see if we need to make the energized smelter even faster. Over here, it's more of the same. You need to be set to input from the left and output to the right, auto eject on. This guy right here needs to input from the right and from the back and output to the left. You need to input from the right and output to the back, like that. And then this guy right here needs to input from the left and then output to the back. Auto eject on, get rid of all these. I think that is pretty much good to go. The only thing left then, of course, is getting this to work. I don't know why that's in there. That should be in here. You need to be set to auto eject. This will work. Of course, we did set these to redstone control high. Let's go ahead and make sure that all of those are set to redstone control ignored. And boom, that is working fantastic. This is also working. And then over here, this is not quite working yet. But again, that's because this needs to fill up on carbon first. Once that fills up on carbon, it should be good to go. You'll see we are slowly but surely backing up on carbon over here. I think the carbon is coming in, yeah, way faster than this is using it. We can, of course, give that a quick head start by just putting some coal in manually, like that. And that's going to allow this to actually start doing its thing. Again, we can also do a little one of these just to get that going a little faster, to see if all of this works. Over here, we have one bronze gear, we have one invar gear, and as soon as these are done smelting, we should have, ideally, a steel gear as well. At which point, as I mentioned before, the only thing left is going to be getting create power to this mechanical mixer. So there it is. We have all of the required ingredients. Oh, no, we don't. Of course, I completely forgot, chat. There is one final ingredient that we do not have, and that is, of course, the basic mechanical essence. So let's get rid of this. And let's pick up this as well. We'll move this basic EMC link over to the other side, and we'll use this to extract the final product. So I'll put that maybe here, and we'll extract the blue crystals over into there. So if we're going to get... I'm going to move this stuff, actually. I'm going to move this and this. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a not at all janky pipe that runs between these two machines. I guess what we could do if we wanted it to be a little less janky, I was going to run it over the top of the machines. Let's make sure this is set to wrench mode. I'm going to get rid of these. I was going to run it from here up, over, and into here. That seems a bit unnecessary. If we can steal to steel, we can hopefully make some more of these basic logistical transporters. I think we might need them. But let's just run this from here down and over, and we'll have it come up, I guess, right into the bottom of here. If we're going to do that, we probably want pretty pipes, right? Because we don't want to have... I don't think it matters if there's a stack of them in here. Let me test that theory. We'll replace down our cogwheel, and temporarily at least our hand crank. And then if we do this, I think it just works. I think that the remaining 63, basic mechanical essences just stay in there. So that's fine, yeah, that's not going to be a problem for us. It does mean we're going to have like a backlog of basic mechanical essence just sitting in this basin, but I think that's kind of fine. Let's extract from you and then run that down and across and around. We do need to set this to extract, which means we do have to first leave wrench mode. There we go. And cool, that should work, I think, just fine. We don't want auto extract on. That's not going to be a problem. So, we could do with setting up a better system than this for producing create power. But as janky as it's going to be, for the time being, I might just need to tap into it. The reason for that, chat, is that I don't have that much time left before we have to wrap up today's stream. And so instead, we might just have to do this in a slightly more janky fashion than usual. Okay, so there is a bunch of andesite alloy. Let's make a little bit of shaft. 16's probably going to be more than enough. And then if we want another gearbox here, we just need some more planks. We've got a load of planks, but a lot of them are in chiseled form, which unfortunately means you can't craft with them, which is less than ideal. But let's do 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. I think we're going to need at least 2 gearboxes here, potentially more. And then we, of course, need the standard create andesite casing. That is fine. Let's take at least 2 of these. 1, 2. Give those a quick strip. And then boom, boom. There are our 2 gearboxes. And my idea here is that we can hopefully make this work. So I'm going to get rid of this cogwheel right here, this big one, because it's not doing anything outside of basically acting as a shaft. And we're going to put a gearbox there. That's going to rotate the direction and mean that this is set to pull, not push. That's fine because it means we can just get rid of this and replace that with a standard shaft. And that's going to work just fine. The reason I did that is because I want to be able to pull this shaft power across this way. And then we're going to try and run that up to here. So for that to work, I think we're going to try and get it to come in right here like this. So we're going to need a lot more shaft to run all the way up there. But that should be fine. We can, and we're going to need, is it in line? It's not in line. That would have been very nice. We're going to need at least like 2 gearboxes here. We have 2 gearboxes. Let me see. If we do this and this, we're going to have to move this pipe as well. Now that I think about it, this pipe right here. Again, the wrench mode on this is going to be the fastest way to get rid of that. We can move that in a second. In fact, I'll move that like that. Let's run this down. It doesn't matter which way this rotates, so long as it rotates. We can craft the regular gearbox into a vertical gearbox, which allows us to change the direction from horizontal to vertical. And then here, we just need another gearbox like that. Hook this in like this. And we're overstressed. So we're using too many stress units. That's because this guy over here is trying to use all 512. And then this guy over here is also trying to use an extra 256. That's a lot of stress units. We can... Oh, it's awkward because we can potentially rectify that with more with more sails, but we don't really have the height to do that down here. The alternative solution is to try and tap in from like maybe one of the slower cogwheels because we don't need this running at 512 stress units. We only need it running, I think, at 256. So if we can go one step back, which is like this one here, we still need to leave that there because that needs rotation. But if we can connect it here, then we might be onto something. So let me temporarily steal this one and put it down here like that. Then let's move all of this up by 1 and see if this works. I think it's fine that this runs through the windmill. It doesn't look fine, but I think it is fine. So we'll put our normal gearbox, not like that. We'll put our normal gearbox here, and then we'll put our vertical gearbox here. That is working, and up on the surface, this is using 256, which is perfect. That means that now, if we can get one more gearbox chat, I think that we are going to be good to go. Of course, we need yet another stripped log. That's fine. Did I put more in here? I did. Let's do this and that. Fantastic. Okay, chat. I think we have it. I think we have what it takes to make one more cogwheel, one more gearbox. There we go. And we can put that back down over here. This should be fine. It is. This is using 256. This is making 512, which is double 256. And this is working as well. So all we need to do is reconnect back up this pipe here, the one bringing the basic essence over from this sequential fabricator, and I think we're good to go. Like, it's just waiting on Invar gears here, which is just waiting on Invar, which is waiting on iron, so it does appear that we are, again, slowly backing up on iron in the metallurgic infuser. So I think, as odd as it looks, I think this is fast enough. We can, of course, if we want, put one more speed and energy upgrade into here, like that. We could if we wanted to put all 8 in, but I think that's a little wasteful. That should hopefully fill this up and then give some excess for the induction smelter. Of course, the induction smelter, it's awkward because the induction smelter actually needs 2 iron for every 1 nickel. And so you know what? For now, I'm just going to put both of these in like that. It does massively increase the power output, the power usage, which is the big problem right now because we're not producing that much. So having one machine that constantly is using 200 redstone flux per tick, I think is really going to stress our power system out. But this is working. And the final step of the process is to grab that other multi-servo press, the one that we were previously using to produce the basic crystals, and instead have that over here. So let's put it, I guess, here, like that. We're going to set the right side to input, like this. We're going to set the left side to output. We'll turn auto eject on, and we'll place down that final EMC link. We're going to move that over to, let's say here, actually. We'll put it on top like that, and we'll set this to output to the top, not the left. And then all we need to do, chat, all we need to do, the final piece of the puzzle here, is to get one single pretty pipe, place it down like this, and then if we can get an extraction module and also a filter module. The filter module is key here because otherwise the pipe is going to try and extract the bronze rods, the steel gears, and the basic mechanical essences of the world. We only want to extract the finished essence. And so for that, we're going to need this low filter module, which restricts flow from pipes into adjacent inventories. It's going to allow us to block certain things going to certain places. I think we have just enough pipes to make this work. We're missing iron nuggets of all things. That is fine. We do have iron nuggets. Let's hit request one more time there to get our second blank module. I don't think we have a hopper, so let's request one of those. And that should be everything that we need to get the filter module. Fantastic. And then in terms of the extraction module, it should just be a case of getting a piston and then request the low extraction module. Nice. Okay, so I think that's everything we need. If we put the filter in first, we can go ahead. Let's take out these guys. We can also drop everything else back in manually. But in here, we're going to filter this. And that, it says all sides. I think that's fine. We're then also going to go ahead and put the extraction in. And we're going to say extract from the basin into here. And that should just work. Obviously, there's none of these in here just yet. But as soon as that one is made, it didn't get extracted out. It's pulling the wrong thing. That is not good. Never mind. It's set to items are disallowed. We're going to say that to allowed. So now if I get rid of that, it should only extract the blue ones. In fact, we might not even need the filter. I know I've just made this, but if we put in here in the low extraction module, it says items in filter slot are disallowed. If we change that to allowed and we put this in and we take the filter module out, does that work? I think that totally works, chat. Let's give it a second. Let's see if we can get another steel gear here. All right, the steel gear is there. That's going to make its way through. The mixer is going to mix it, and we should see, finally, look at that. The blue crystal comes out. Fantastic. Chat, we have done it. It is a little bit on the janky side, but it's done. And it's fairly compact, all things considered. I didn't know if we'd managed to fit it into a quadrant, but we have managed to do so. And that is going to auto output up to the top and begin making us more EMC. I don't know if we're actually making more EMC now than we were before. We're making more, but I don't know if it's like, I think our profit margins might be slimmer because we're using more, like we're consuming more resources and we're only producing a little bit more than double the original value of the basic mechanical crystal. But now, chat, we can come back next time. And we can start looking potentially at some point on making the tier 3 essence, the improved mechanical essence. But I think before we do that, we are going to want to potentially look at getting a better, more condensed source of mechanism power. And maybe even more importantly than that, we also want to look at getting the rotational speed controller so that we can get rid of this big mess of cogwheels and replace it with just one small rotational speed controller that we can use to set the speed for both the FEM and the mechanical mixer. And of course, we do also want to fix this abomination that we have here. In fact, what I'm probably going to do for now is just go ahead and break that blurst earth. That is going to expose a lot of bats lying around, which could be hindering our mob spawning capabilities, but you can see that right here, if I left that going, we were going to start causing a lot of server lag. So what we'll do is we'll leave this for now. Next time we'll come back, we'll look at getting a better source of create power. We'll look at getting our storage drawers up and running and getting all of our stuff like diamonds, lapis, iron, gold into those drawers, along with all of the wares that we want to keep from our mob farm. And we'll also begin looking at some point fairly soon at getting the next tier of mechanical essence, which does come with an upgrade to refined storage, which is going to be a fairly large upgrade over the crafting terminal we currently have. But those are all problems for future Isaac. For now, I'm going to go ahead and ramp up today's stream there.